everyone and welcome back to AV Chess Lab. This game that we're going to cover today was played in New Orleans in the year 1920 between the players Edwin Adams with the white pieces and Carlos Torre with the black pieces. Two players you probably never heard of, but you will be treated to a sensational finish. So watch all the way to the end so you can see what happened. Alright, this game starts with e4, e5, knight to f3, d6, and we have a Philidor's defense on the board. White goes for d4, e takes d4, and queen takes d4 by white. Bringing the queen and centralizing her in this kind of setup is usually a good idea, but in order to keep her there, white will have to surrender his bishop pair, since after knight to c6, the queen is going to get kicked back. So the only way to prevent that is to go for bishop to b5, pinning the knight to the king. Here bishop to d7 is played, bishop takes on c6, and bishop takes on c6. So here, although white has more space, has more centralization in the center of the board, black does have the bishop pair. Knight to c3. Now I prefer to go for c4 with a good grip here on the d5 square. Then after this you can follow the game with moves like knight to c3, bishop to f4, castle kingside, and bring your rooks to the center to d1 and e1, and you will have an excellent dominating position. But knight to c3 is a great move, and it has given white many victories in this position. Knight to f6, black continues to develop, and white follows that by castling, bishop e7, knight to d5, and bishop takes d5. A tough decision to make, but trying to make use of the bishop pair will be difficult, and the pawn on d5 will restrict the bishop anyway. Had black gone for knight takes on d5, e takes d5, bishop d7, notice how this pawn on d5 does a very good job at preventing the white square bishop from moving anywhere. In this position, white's just going to continue with moves like pawn to c4, bring this bishop out to f4, the queen back to d2, rook to e1, the other rook to d1, and it's going to have an excellent game. So after bishop takes d5, e takes d5, castles by black, and bishop g5. And this is one of those situations where the knight is better than the bishop. So if this bishop ever trades itself for the knight on f6, this knight can just jump back to d2 and to e4, and the bishop from f6, being a dark square bishop, can never target the knight being on a light square. Here black continue with the move c6, and it's a logical move, but also it creates some weaknesses. Black's position is already very difficult to play. White has more space, more control in the center, and his pieces are just better placed to conduct attacks on both sides of the board. So with c6, black is hoping for a recapture, or at least if the recapture doesn't happen, he can capture on d5 himself and then bring the rook from the a file to c8 and have some counterplay that way. But after c6, white continues with c4, c takes d5, c takes d5, and here rook to e8, centralizing the rooks. White continues in the same spirit with rook f2 e1, and here black goes for this move h5. Now this move has been criticized a lot, but it's hard to find any other moves for black here. The only move to consider in hindsight of what happened in this game is to maybe have gone for the move h6, making some room for the king to move. But the ideas of a5 are clever, and for example, one idea would be to go rook to a6, rook to b6, from where it will be attacking the pawn on b2 in some situations. Another idea would be to simply go knight d7, knight to c5, and another idea would be to go pawn to a4, rook to a5, from where it would hit the pawn on d5 with two pieces, the knight and the rook. But after pawn to a5, white continue with rook to e2, rook c8 by black, and rook a e1 by white. And now the stage is set for something beautiful. Here black continues with queen to d7, completely missing the idea and not sensing the danger here. White continues with bishop takes on f6, bishop takes on f6, And before I go any further, if you want to play for white and find the best move and continuation, pause the video now as I will give you a couple of seconds. Okay, here now we have one of the most spectacular sequences in chess history as white offers his queen in 6 consecutive moves. And if you found queen to g4, congratulations. The queen cannot be captured because of a bank mate, and capturing the rook fails to queen takes d7 since the rook on e1 is protected by the knight. Let's see what that looks like. If the queen captures on g4, we go rook takes rook, check, rook captures, and rook captures rook, checkmate. If instead of this, we go for rook takes rook, we go queen takes queen, and when the rook captures on e1, the knight can capture back on e1 and nothing happens. So because of this, neither one of these pieces can move, but black has to make a move. So he goes for queen to b5. He needs to keep an eye on this square on e8. Here, white continues with another superb move and goes queen to c4. And from here, the queen is attacked by both the queen and the rook. But neither one of those captures work, since if anything like that happens, again, there will be a nasty checkmate in the bank rank. So instead, black continues with queen to d7, protecting against any threats here on this e8 square. Here, white continues with queen to c7. Just amazing, the queen gives itself for a third time, and now it has completely penetrated the opponent's camp. And yet, the same theme, any captures by black lead to mate or loss of a queen. Because of this, black has to return with queen to b5. So what now? It appears as though black is just happy with returning from b5 to d7, and white's queen is actually in the way. If the queen actually moves from the c file now, this nasty threat by black on e2 is actually going to lead to mate on the other side of the board. So white needs to figure out something to do. So if you want to pause the video here and find the other move that white throws in this position, go ahead, as I will give you a couple of seconds to do. Alright, so here white continues with this move a4. Did you find this move? Well, when I was first given this position around 10 to 15 years ago, I'm not quite sure. All I remember is I was 1400 rated. I could not find this move. So if you did, congratulations, and you're doing very well. The queen captures on a4, and this is the idea behind the a4 move. Rook to e4. Again, neither the rook nor the queen can be captured, and this queen has to be moved because we're obviously attacking it with a rook from e4. So the queen returns to b5. But now that the rook is no longer here on e2, all the threats that were there before are no longer possible. So capturing on b7 this time does work. And it's in this position that black decided to throw in the towel. And let's take a quick look why. Yes, the queen is still hanging, and our rook still hanging, but neither one of them could be captured. If the queen captures the queen, we go rook takes rook with the same idea of back rank checkmate. And if the rook captures here, then we capture this rook and it's game over as well. So for that reason, white just decided to quit this game as it is. Notice that all the squares that this queen can move in order to protect this rook on e8 are taken. So it is time to throw in the towel. 6 straight queen sacrifices leading to resignation. I hope everyone enjoyed this game. It is one of my favorite games and I just had to share it with you guys. Queen sacrifices don't come around often, and whenever you can finish with something like this, especially in a tournament, it's quite special. As always, stay safe, have a great day, and show respect to your opponent. See you next time.